Hello, welcome back to Blender LiveEnoDing. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit more about Blender 3D cursor and how we can kind of use the 3D cursor informations and use it in node-based system like Sphere and geometry nodes. I talked about this in the previous videos and how we can use 3D cursor as a tool. But anyway, let's see what else we can do with it. So 3D cursor is crucial tool for positioning object and defining points in space. This is using Google Bard AI. So we can actually access the data of the 3D cursor using BPY, Blender Python. For example, if we want to get the locations, we can use this setup location, maybe the depth data or the size of the cursor. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see. Okay, in Blender 3.6.2, let's say we are using Sphere before geometry nodes. The recent geometry nodes actually can use 3D cursor in object and in edit mode. So in the old days, okay, before the geometry nodes, I will be using Sphere. With Sphere we have interesting nodes that geometry nodes doesn't have. So it's a get property and set property. I believe this one will actually work right away instantly. Let's say this is how we can get access to the 3D cursor using BPY, and we can get its locations. So with Sphere we can actually do that pretty easily. So this is actually something that geometry nodes have, sort of, but it's maybe not at the moment. Maybe it's already there, but anyhow. So if we have this box and this is in edit mode, but we want to go back to object mode and we want to just look at the position of this 3D cursor. So we can use shift right click and then repositions the 3D cursor, or we can use this tool, cursor tool, and then set it to geometry, and then we can actually drag this thing. In recent Blender, we can actually drag it and it's gonna slide through the 3D surface instead of clicking it. Okay, so that's something to understand first. So this is Sphere in nodes and it's already getting the data, right? We can actually use viewer draw, for example. We can pass this into the matrix and then we can use box. So in this example, we don't actually get the orientations of the cursor. Cursor orientation, how to get orientation matrix of the cursor. I believe we can actually get the rotations as well, but I think for now just keep it simple. So yeah, we can do this. We can get the locations, right, and we can bake. So this is the Sphere method. It's already kind of pretty cool. It's not really super useful. Like, I mean, if we drag and drop to there, we get the orientations of the objects, and we can actually snap it. But this is just, it's a tool that's already built in Blender. But in this case, we want to study about the 3D cursor and how it relates to nodes. So we can bake. So I think this is kind of interesting. In recent Blender 4.1, which is still alpha, we can do the same. Okay, this is the cursor orientations matrix. Cursor rotation quaternion to matrix. Okay, this is possible, but might be slightly, we need to convert the matrix, etc. I think geometry nodes already enable that. Oh, anyway, don't worry about this. Save. We're gonna switch to Blender 4.1. this one. So I'm running something in the background, so hopefully it doesn't crash. So with 4.1, we can actually source the 3D cursor data inside geometry nodes and in object modes instead of having to go inside. So let's save this one, gn 3D cursor. Let's do the same. Go to edit mode and then go to select the edge, command B, select the face. I don't know. Yeah, I just need this. So this is geometry nodes in as a modifier, but I want to go to tool. So as a tool, get rid of this. As a tool, we actually able to use this now in object mode instead of having to go inside the edit mode. So both will actually work now. So this is in object mode, 3D cursor is there, location and rotations. So we learned this in the previous video. It's the same. So in order for us to get something, so we bring in the original geometry, and then what other geometry we want to transform it with location and rotation from the 3D cursor, and the geometry could be anything, maybe cylinder or icosphere, and plug that in. So we have learned this one in the latest Blender. It's actually more, it's more real time, but okay, the 3D cursor is following the surface, I believe. No, okay, we still need to click it, but anyhow, the tool will appear here. So as you can see, it's following the orientations, and we can place and drop it. However, we are actually currently still in object mode. We didn't go inside the edit mode. I think it's still modifying the objects from the inside. Yeah, still, but we actually can run this now on the object mode instead of having to go to edit mode or sculpt mode. So now we are in object mode, and the tool is actually residing here. Okay, so what else is interesting? Let me double check. Oh yeah, what's interesting, okay, we can build this. Okay, obviously with recent Blender we can actually easily snap objects. If we move this and we want to snap it, I think is it B or Control B? Yeah, there is a shortcut to snap the edge, which I forgot. Anyhow, don't worry about that. What I want to show you is that we can draw curve, and then curve is actually special, right? Because I'm thinking curve and then using tool to generate instance along the curve, things like that. Because curve is interesting, because if you go to edit mode, you can draw on the objects. If you check the surface, curve is interesting that way. So at the moment, so the cursor is no longer important, but I just want to point it out. So curve, with the curve workflow, if we go back to modifier, we can resample the curve. and then instance on points, instance could be icosphere, plug this in, change the radius. So this actually works instantly so yeah, so this is cool, but the curve actually works in edit mode only, so we can only draw in edit mode with curve. That's kind of like limitation, although this is a cool part. The cool part about curve, when you draw it on the surface, it's gonna accumulate. So I kind of like this kind of effects. And same thing with the 3D cursor. Now if we use the 3D cursor and then snap it on the geometry, it will work the same. So you can, now it's in object mode. Where's the, oh yeah, there's a, this is still Blender alpha, so sometimes the tool option disappear. If we have this, it should be still here. Anyhow, so on top of this curve and 3D cursor, we actually have, of course, the grease pencil method. With grease pencil in draw mode in the latest Blender, we can draw things. Okay, we can draw things a little bit like curve. Can't see the object. Okay, see, still buggy, but I think the grease method is actually super handy. At the moment it's only drawing it on the plane, but the grease being is also something that we can modify and resample, and we can instance on points. Let's make this cube or sphere, UV sphere. Plug this as instance. Change this to evaluated or length. Okay, so this is the grease pencil method. The grease one is actually interesting. In the older Blender, grease pencil can connect to another grease pencil in 3D. So at the moment with this version, it doesn't seem to be doing that. But I think the advantage with the grease pencil, you can kind of draw in 3D space and then in object mode, and then the modifier will be added in the object mode. So let me restart Blender 4.1, back to the cursor. So by juggling the 3D cursor, so 3D cursor, so this guy over here, so shift right click will actually place the 3D cursor where it lands on the surface, like that. And at that very point we can bring in anything as through the tool. So maybe this is currently icosphere, but we can actually use a switch, right? Where's the switch? Index switcher. So we have index switcher. We can have multiple objects like box, cube. So icosphere, cube, or cylinder. This goes into there, and then the index goes into the group input. So whenever we want to surface project as a tool, where's the tool now? It should be up here. Mesh hair. object mode. You see, object, edit, sculpt. So we have those three objects. Oh well, I will just copy this and then create a new one, call it blah. Paste. Still doesn't work. Ah, there we go. There, it just appeared when I select an object. I need to select an object in order for this to work, which is strange, very strange. But anyhow, we can now test our blah. This is icosphere. Okay, this guy over here. Okay, this should go to the group input. So we can control that. This also goes into group input. That's the scale of the objects. So we can now select this and then blah. Now we have control over the index. So 1, 2, 3, we have to limit the index value between 0 and 2. Index minimum 0, maximum 2. Oh, I think maybe that's still buggy. Anyhow, we can now use 3D cursor, place it there, and then let's just right click and then add this into quick favorite so we can access this with Q. We can place blah there. So you get the point, right? This is kind of new ability. Yeah, so what I really want is the really ability to place it at the end, and then it's kind of snap there, and then we can build something from there. So it's almost like a building Lego pieces, but you know. So this is the advantage of the curve object. The grease pencil actually can. Grease pencil give more freedom where you can snap. So the curve seems to be doing that as well. So curve is really improved in recent Blender 4.1, 3.6. So it does snap on all of those objects, whatever your view is. So that's kind of helpful. So when you're working in 3D view, you know, like Blender 3D view, which is like a 2D, but if the ability to snap that way, like grease pencil and curve, is making a bit of freedom for you to place the objects. So that way, whenever you now with the 3D cursor and ability to place whatever now. Oh, okay. It's selecting curve, so I can't actually place it. So I think that's a slight limitation. So let me deselect those. That's a curve object. So I cannot select the curve object. I need to select mesh object in order for this to appear. No, I think it's still just buggy. Just something to keep in mind. Okay, see, this thing appears. Selecting curve, it doesn't appear. Selecting mesh, it appears. Okay, select curve, convert, right click, convert to mesh. Now, okay, it disappeared because because we are using this modifier, and then we need to realize instances, And once this is a mesh, we can apply modifier or right click convert to mesh. Now it's become modifier, and so we can use 3D cursor, place this at the end there, and then apply blah or test blah. Now it works. Still, yeah, it's super basic, but still kind of useful. You see, this part is interesting, so we can scale it that way, and we can extend. We need one more to push this in the normal. Yeah, I don't know. Just leave it for now. But I think what could be interesting is that you see the 3D cursor in Blender. The 3D cursor is almost like a target. So it's like you can target anything in 3D space. It works with the depth as well. So you can use this to as a pointer, like a video game pointer, and so you can perhaps control. If you move this 3D cursor, you can make objects to follow this 3D cursor, and that you can animate that way as well. I believe that's possible. Maybe not working with the tool, but with the method like SphereChalk. So it's monitoring the 3D cursor on the fly, and then having the nodes working behind it. So it's making all these objects to follow the 3D cursor. Maybe that's something we can try to do. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Just an exploration with 3D cursor. Just I always feel curious and see what you can get out of, especially with AI now. ChatGPT, excuse me, ChatGPT and Bard, whatever AI you are using, you can dig more information. You can even ask, like Erindale YouTube Erindale video that talks about 3D cursor. Maybe, yeah, see? Here's some YouTube videos about 3D cursor in Blender, not from Erindale, but yeah, Bart can actually do that as well. So it's really cool. You can really query any kind of questions, Blender question or whatever. Just ask Bart AI. So that's pretty much it for the 3D cursor explorations. Hopefully you find it useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.